Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, Teddy, good to see you.
You too, Rabbi.
So we say that we started last week, right, in saying on Sunday that Purim is this one holiday that will never be diminished in its importance, that the Megillah, as opposed to everything else in that segment of Tanakh, Megillat Esther will never be downgraded or discontinued in terms of learning it.
What will get downgraded, for example?
Everything other than the Hamisha Chumshei Torah, the first 5 books, in the mature stages of Mashiach.
Oh, wow.
We hold that they'll either be put in the Genizah, according to some opinions, pretty amazing, I'll tell you why in a minute, or no longer read publicly, sidetracked, but still studied.
All right.
A few other opinions.
That's a big insight.
But
That's a big insight.
The perspectives are that either what the Nevi'im profess and talk about, we will have experienced, and with the development of the Geulah and the time of Mashiach. So there's no real need for that.
That's it. Unnecessary
What
chatter.
they prescribed happened. We lived it.
Right.
And we're at a different place intellectually, right? As it's coming on.
That makes so much sense to me. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, that's why.
Is there also an idea the holidays will be downgraded?
He's on the plane again, this guy.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a minute. Are you landed? Where are you? You still on the plane?
Just landed in Newark.
Unbelievable.
He's not really allowed to be on the phone yet, I don't think.
It was on this morning for his son's class, which was spectacular.
I'm sorry, I missed that, but I'm going to watch the report.
Spectacular. That's it. Period. Nothing.
Did you see me try to stop crying the whole time?
Huh?
Did you see me try to stop crying the whole time?
Oh,
yeah, I did actually.
That's great.
I mean, how could you not? How could you not?
That's great. Beauty. Listen, I would be too. It's nothing.
The two of them are incredible.
Amazing.
They're great.
I wish I understood
You should be very proud.
I wish you understood a word. By the way, you're not alone with that. You're not alone.
We all feel the same way. We're all like
off these things like it was like we're talking about, the ball game, and he's just rattling it off. I don't think he looked at a piece of paper. Maybe he had bullet points or something.
Thank God.
No, it was great. It was great. Beautiful. Keep building these gorgeous kids.
That's great.
So,
Genizah, right? Right. I got it.
The holiday. Let's talk Teddy's point in a minute. Let's finish the Megillah point. So, one of the opinions that Al Sheikh HaKadosh, which we mentioned last time, says that the reason that we won't need these books anymore is because we will have grown to a much greater level intellectually and spiritually, and the messages that they include we can glean out of the Chumash itself.
Let's get rid of them right now. Forget it.
I wish we could. We all wish we could. We all wish we could. That means we'd be in a very different place. So, so we're given this beautiful picture of where we'll be up. So, Teddy, to your point. So, in terms of the downgrading of the Hagim, some opinions hold that the Chagim, even those the Oraitot, the holidays that are even described in the Torah, will also be downgraded or moved or
take a back seat.
Wow,
it's a wow.
You're itching a scratch right now. Woo!
That's a wow. And what will remain is Purim. So we're going to talk about what that means and why these perspectives are presented. Okay?
Right. Yeah.
Abe, hi, you there?
Yes.
Great.
Hi, everyone.
All right, great. Okay, so let's talk about the model first. We have to talk about a model. There's a model here that one second before we talk about the model. What's the point of a holiday? What is the point? What's the purpose?
To celebrate, to grow, to magnify the thing that happened, right?
It's beautiful. To extract the lessons
Right,
and to become different as a result of those lessons,
right, okay.
right? Like we talked about, Zeke, the early days, you may remember, back in when we were,
Back when we were kids, when we were tykes. Yeah,
Yeah,
when we were tykes, when we were just we children. Yeah,
that's right. It all started with it. It all started with
Yeah.
when we said that we look at our lives as an upwardly moving spiral, right?
uh-huh.
Each year, God willing, if we have the beracha to live another year and to celebrate, let's say Purim this year, when we make the beracha of Shehiyanu and we start the holiday, we should look back on Purim last year and see how we've grown in terms of the insights that we got from last Purim.
Uh-huh.
It's here. I hit Purim 5872, let's say, right? 5782. I hit that Purim last year. I glean the messages. I grow as a result.
Right.
I'm using those tools all year. I'm moving up on the spiral. This year, I look down on that one, quantifying my growth vis-a-vis the highlights of this day, the messages of this day. And that goes to the perspective of God designed the holidays and then the events followed, right?
Right.
There's
There's
that very exciting perspective that says the holidays came first. In other words, Purim doesn't come to commemorate what happened. Purim had to be Purim. Hanukkah had to be a holiday.
Right.
And
Or it's happening at the same time, meaning it's all happening at the same time.
not necessarily, meaning the holiday had to be here for Jews to grow from each year for thousands of years. And so the holidays were set up first,
I see. Okay.
and then the events
Uh-huh.
that would provide the background and the infill for the holidays. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
got it.
meaning that a moed is a period of respite. It's an oasis in time where Purim is not Tuesday, it's Purim. So we forget that it's Tuesday. We move to a totally different zone. We immerse in the day completely, and we extract everything we can from its key messages and mitzvot in order to grow.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the purpose of a moed. So again, we're adults. We understand. We cherish every day of life. When we say the beracha of Shehiyanu, we want to look back. We want to say really thank you, and we want to remind ourselves that the mitzvot of the day and the background and understanding of the day is something that I need to take and work.
Right.
It ain't just another day, and it's not a commemoration or a celebration. It's a tool to build my life.
Right. It's a shame we weren't built with a built-in barometer that just showed you how your progress, and you didn't have to wonder if you were doing it right or not. You know what I mean?
Everybody has a built-in
I know
barometer.
we do. We have an internal one, but we don't have. If it was absolute, then we would stop because we would know. Oh, I did it. I'm good. My energy bar is full. I don't have to do anymore.
Then you'd be
That's
a
what
robot.
causes us to grow further, right?
But don't you think we know?
I think we know.
I think we have it. I think if you spend time like doing more introspect instead of like in today's world, like I tell my kids all the time, they spend so much time keeping themselves busy so that they don't really wanna.
Reflect.
Like you have something bad going on in your life, you don't really want to open that letter or that mail or whatever it is. So you just like wait till the next day. It's like that. Like I think we all know, what's right, and we know when our bar is good. You go on those streaks where, let's say, you're going to shul every day, you're learning, and you feel like you're on cloud 9, or whether at work or whether with working out, whatever it is that you're excelling at, and
You do know. You know
just
internally.
choose-
You know. You
right,
do
we
know,
choose
but you
to
question
keep
it
our
a
eyes
little bit.
closed when we want to.
Beautiful. I absolutely do know, and I think
But one
Does-
Purim to the next to reflect on the last year, right, is a big,
That-
it's a big
Yeah,
gap.
that's
right,
hard.
to-
It's hard. It's
Yeah,
definitely hard.
it is, it's different. That's, I mean, we know we're growing, but how much are we growing? How, are we growing enough? Are we, that's the thing. But
But
yeah, I
Ace
agree with
point-
you. You're right. You do know.
Introspecting more and busying ourselves less,
Yeah,
that we're going to be more aware of our growth, right?
100%.
Good. So to Teddy's point in terms of the other Hagim, there's an opinion that says that the reason that the other Hagim will be downgraded or discontinued and Purim will stay forever is because Purim includes everything that's highlighted in each of the other individual Chagim. Purim encompasses everything, each of the individual points that have to be gleaned from each individual holiday and built and grown with, they're all baked into Purim.
Amazing.
So if the purpose of a Moed is to confront me and allow me to re-experience X so that I could take it and become more, and Purim includes the X or the X's of Pesach, Shavuot, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and so on, then let's just focus on that one.
Wow.
Yeah, so let's talk about how that would work. Tell me what is the message of Pesach? What are we celebrating?
Freedom.
Right, we're celebrating being extracted from the slavery of a physical king and going under the dominion of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, right?
Yep.
Good. What are we doing here? We're doing the same thing. There was a disconnect here. Remember when we learned the passage on Amalek, which we read tomorrow, right? There was a disconnect between the Jewish people of the time,
Right.
similar to what happened after Mei Merivah in the desert, and the question Hayesh Hashem b'kibenu im ayin, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu infused in us? Is he saturated in us? Is that our focal point? Is that our how we live and so on? Was brought back here. And clearly Hashem was not b'kibenu, he was not inside of us. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not inside of us, there's one thing that happens, and that's Amalek.
Wow.
So what do we say that what the sin of Purim, not that they went to the party, or they drank wine, or they wasted time, or they watched Achashverosh parade the kelim of the Bet HaMikdash, or wear the clothes of Aharon. All those things were disgusting. But none of them would bring a punishment of mavet, of death. You had the most catastrophic punishment ever decreed on the Jewish people was brought in the context of Purim. So when we talk, where did it come from? Why did we have a problem? Because we became mechanical. We became robotic in our observance. We became rich in the galut. We became consumed with the mundane. That, lo adenu, is what breaks the bank. That is what breaks the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and now we have a problem. So when we talk about the pecking order of awareness, that we want to reclaim a certain amount of awareness as a result of holidays, if the holiday of Pesach is meant for me to reclaim my stepping away from a physical king and committing to an omnipotent king, Purim is that much stronger, that same message.
Right.
Because Pesach, the problem was slavery that we were suffering under. But Purim, the issue was extinction. So in terms of a key message, an understanding of the galut, an understanding of our development, one of the first points we can tag is that the Purim could replace Pesach
Wow.
because Purim talks about an absolute existential issue, whereas Pesach was only slavery. So if I'm going to talk about disconnecting from X,
Right.
liberating from X, and connecting to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Purim sends the message stronger than Pesach.
Yeah, but Purim, for Pesach, in comparison to Purim, Pesach is half a story. It's not the full story. It doesn't take you to, right?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And therefore, we're at a different point in human development, in Jewish development, right? And the awareness demands on a person, on a Jewish person, are less because we've grown so much, and because we're primarily spiritual at that point, and secondarily physical. So now I can consolidate and hit with the strongest message in fewer days, let's say. Tell me
We're
about
still in
Shavuot.
Galut, though. Like we're not
beautiful.
truly free after Purim.
Huh?
We're not truly free after Purim. Like we don't have independence in our own state, and like I wouldn't call that like a Geulah.
That's a fantastic question. So I'm not going to answer the question yet. We're going to get to it at the end, God willing. I'm not going to answer it yet, but I want you to consider something in the context of your question. Both times, when did we get? We say that we got the Torah again. We're going to talk about how, so to speak, in a minute. But we said that we got the Torah again on Purim, right? Well, right, we got it again. We'll talk about that in a minute, 2 minutes. Teddy, when did we get the Torah both? Where did we get the Torah both times?
In Galut, yeah.
Beautiful.
In Har Sinai, yeah.
Both times we got it in Galut. So that's a separate question. I want to connect that question to your question, okay? But hold it there. That was intentional, right? We got the Torah outside of the land of Israel twice. Why? So we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Good?
Good question. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Shavuot. What does Shavuot stand for? Huh?
The receiving of the
Shavuot.
Torah.
Huh? Beautiful.
Receiving-
Right. Shavuot stands for the receiving of the Torah, right?
Yeah.
How did we receive it on Shavuot? What do we say? How did we receive it?
Naaseh v'nishma, what?
Beautiful. Naaseh v'nishma. And what does the Midrash say? We learned it when we were little kids. What does the Midrash say?
That they held the mountain, that Hashem held the mountain over us.
Excellent. Fantastic. Meaning what?
I don't
That's
know.
right.
He didn't give us a choice.
He didn't give us a choice.
He gave us an offer we couldn't refuse. Yeah. Yep.
Couldn't refuse. Beautiful. Therefore, and this you all know, we'll review it quickly. We don't need Shavuot anymore because we have Purim, where there was also a Matan Torah. So we're done with Pesach, so to speak. We're done with Shavuot. By the way, nobody's looking to get rid of the holidays. We're just looking to understand Purim, right? So Pesach we don't need because Pesach only represented a threat to our freedom, to our liberty, to our ability to think and grow and build and that. And Purim represented an absolute existential threat. They weren't taking any prisoners. It was complete annihilation. Shavuot was Matan Torah, but as we mentioned, and this is important, we'll spend a couple of minutes on this, and you're all familiar with this, so we'll just review it. Shavuot was the Matan Torah celebrated in Shavuot was cold. It was forced. It was with a lack of partnership. So what do we have in Shavuot? To Zeke's point, right? Kafa adem hakigit. What does that mean? That there wasn't any effort here on behalf of the nation. What was the effort? Their only effort was that they stayed away from their wives for 3 days. That was it. That was it. And maybe we were mekayem a couple of mitzvot before. Maybe, right? We got Shabbat, we got Kiddush HaChodesh, we got a handful of mitzvot before Ma'amad Har Sinai. Fine. Okay. But we were overwhelmingly passive, inactive, And we say that it was a very cold acceptance, right? It was a very cold acceptance. What makes it warmer? Where do we start the infill and the building and the relationship? We start that with the Mishkan,
There.
right? And what's the underpinning of the Mishkan, Zeke?
Are we?
Huh? Zeke, you good?
Yeah, I lost sound for a second. Sorry.
What's the underpinning of the Mishkan?
Mikudesh li. Excuse me. B'shachanti l'tocham.
Beautiful. So the underpinning of the Mishkan. Izzy, I'm glad I'm seeing you move again, because if it's Friday and you're on the class and there's no movement, I'm confused. He's not in Ori or
Always,
Real
yeah.
Food. He's in the terminal
He
today.
probably has
Last-
20,000 steps every day, this guy.
Last thing. Now, if he's not moving, is it Friday? Is it Tuesday? I don't know. I'm mixed up.
Hopefully,
okay.
Nahum still has Holly in a few hours.
Great.
He's worried about the
All right, great.
You gotta
So
call a friend. You gotta get somebody to snag you one, you know?
he wants to do it.
He wants to
So
do it.
now, when it starts to get warm is when the Mishkan starts to happen, right? As Izzy mentioned, Shachanti b'tocham, HaKadosh Baruch Hu now wants to connect to us. He wants to build with us together, not on us, not. So what does he do? Teddy, what does he do? Does he drop the Mishkan out of the sky? What does he do?
We have to build it. We're
Beautiful.
involved.
Sends us the instructions. Yeah, right.
We have to build it. We have to create every tiny detail of it, and it's incredibly detailed. We have to bring all of the material for it. We have to bring all the craftsmanship to it. All the craftsmanship is ours, right? So this is a huge paradigm shift for the Jewish people. It's a shock. It's an absolute shock.
Well, but
don't
they were
understand.
laborers from Mitzrayim, right?
They may have been laborers, but they weren't artisans. They certainly weren't artisans. They weren't metal workers and the craftsmen with fabrics and yarns and
Right.
somehow, Lev Kol Chacham Lev Natati Chokhmah, they started to develop the skills, teach themselves these skills, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps.
Right.
But the point being that now you're starting to see a connection based on some level of service, of nedivut, of giving, of generosity of Bnei Israel. And that takes what is the Na'aseh Nishma, which is very mechanical and very cold and very separate, and it makes it much more beautiful, right?
Right.
And now we have certain things that become sort of enshrined in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he is going to make the big stuff move, right?
Mhm.
He's gonna move all the big points of the puzzle. But the way that this works, as we've learned together, is with us making real effort. Fine. So, by the way, going back to the ladder that we're building, right? I don't need Pesach, I have Purim. I don't need Shavuot, I have Purim. Okay, good. But let's go a little further in this model. So the model then moves to the next stage, which is that there is going to be galut, there's going to be periods of diaspora and lack of control and lack of centrality and fear and confusion and lack of authority. That's built into the system, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu said it to Abraham. It's built into the system. And during those times, there are going to be great tests, which we call hastarat panim. What does that mean? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be mastir panim.
Gonna turn his head kiviyachol from us.
Yeah, meaning what, Ed?
Meaning, he's always with us, but let's say they say on Tisha B'Av, like during that time, like he's not exactly connected to us for some reason.
Beautiful, beautiful. So again, we start with Ma'amad Har Sinai. Starts out not where it needs to go, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu immediately starts to fill in and we start to build. We enjoy that type of building together in the context, and then by the shown context for 800 plus years, a little under 900 years, where Bnei Israel are building, it's heartfelt, it's personal. We're bringing korbanot, the different tiers of Jewish people contributing to building this relationship, this warm relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But then we're told, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Abraham Avinu that that's going to have periods where it's not going to be the case. And it's going to be very cold, and we're going to have no control. And these central points, the Shachti B'tocham, as Izzy mentioned, are going to be overwhelmingly gone, right? And then the thing gets really challenging, because what happens in the Galut is you have a lesser touch points, fewer touch points with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have fewer touch points. You have a lack of centrality, a lack of Jewish governance, a lack of Jewish judicial system, right? You have all kinds of giant gaping holes now, relationship with God, coupled with financial success. So on the one hand, we see much less of God, as Abe described, right? On a practical level and on a spiritual level. On the other hand, HaKadosh Baruch Hu zaps us, in quotation marks, with fabulous success and influence in the Galut.
Right, so that's like the morphine, that's the morphine, so we don't feel what's happening with the other stuff, right?
And what beautiful, Zeke, and what does that cause?
That causes confusion, I guess, right? It doesn't,
And
lack of faith and all of it, right?
beautiful. So if you have Hasarat Panim, if you have this less visible God and fewer channels to connect to him and fewer access points, and then you're very successful, what do you got?
Independence, right? You got non-believers and you have all of this stuff, yeah.
Exactly. So now the model that HaKadosh Baruch Hu designed for us to take one step forward, half a step back, grow another 5 steps, get pushed around, now that starts to kick in. Now, Rabbi said that this model is the Yosef HaTzadik model. It's the Yosef model of the Galut, and it just replicates over and over. And Purim is the embodiment of it. And now you have really a difficult thing, because God is showing himself less. The Jewish infrastructure is dramatically diminished. The overt power of it is overwhelmingly diminished. And we're having a great time.
Very successful, because Hashem doesn't want us on those terms, right? Doesn't want us.
One second, wait. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now the question becomes, does Hashem want us on those terms? Beautifully put. What does it mean? Talk to me now. What's supposed to happen?
It's like anything. Nobody wants flowers because they asked for them. Nobody wants you to show up fair weathered friends that because you all of a sudden came into money. This is why people are here. People want natural, the same way as Hashem does. Wants people coming drawn towards their spirituality, not from dangling cheese and saying, if you come here, you'll be rich. That's not going to get it.
I want you to go the other way with it. Because the person is rich, the distance, the hastarat panim, God hiding himself, we hide him. He hides and we hide him.
Right.
Right? He's less visible by design, and we're less focused on him by our success.
Right.
Somebody told me something yesterday. I was so disappointed. He said, look at that, so you worked enough years where you don't have to work anymore, you can learn. I said, well, what a disrespectful comment, right?
Right,
So,
right, because it says that it's like your consolation prize, which is not the,
yeah, and you worked enough years where you have the option to stop working.
right.
But the rest of us,
Can't do that.
can't do that.
Right,
It's the exact nonsense
right,
that put the people of Purim of Shushan and the others where they were put. It's
Right.
the same nonsense. It's the hatzlacha, that thing. So what does that mean? That means for him, he was now very comfortable because he's not my age. And he said, I still have a lot of years where I have to work before I can do anything like this. So when I answered him, just because I didn't even want to continue the conversation, was, you know what? A lot of people have been very, very successful and haven't made this decision,
right,
regardless of where they are, but they have tons of success, financial success, and they haven't made this decision. I.e., what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
There's
But
no
this
merit
is
in
what-
that. There's no merit in that. There's no merit in that,
There's no merit.
thinking.
But it exemplifies where we go in the galut.
Sure.
It exemplifies what happens to us.
Well, it's like
Galut
saying I'll
doesn't-
give tzedakah when I'm rich. It's like saying that, right? And that's almost, it's like the same thing, right? It's,
Beautiful,
right?
beautiful.
It's not the same as somebody who's not rich giving tzedakah and then starts to continue tzedakah as he makes money.
Beautiful.
So,
That's the guy who's building.
right,
That's the guy who's building.
right,
And the guy who's learning Torah all his life. That's
Right.
the guy who's building. Don't tell me or anybody else that, look, I have to deal with my own issues of why I didn't start learning 10 hours a day 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I got to face myself on that issue,
right.
right? But Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, so do you.
Uh-huh.
So does
True,
everybody else.
absolutely, right.
Right?
It's not just for me, it's for everybody. Sure, yeah.
Of course it is. And we've gotten so galutized, right? We've become so subject to the galut. By the way, we're going to live through the galut, and it's going to happen and happen. Part of the design. The point is to extricate myself. How do I extricate myself? So what do you have in the time of Shushan and so on? You have an uchlusia of people who 67 years or so after the destruction of the temple, and all these great figures are gone or greatly reduced in the opportunity to teach the Jewish people. The central points of worshiping HaKadosh Baruch Hu are gone. All the institutions are gone, which is going to happen. They start to make a lot of money and be very influential and successful in their new home in the diaspora.
Mhm.
So they check out.
Right,
So did they eat kosher? Of course they did. Did they drink kosher wine? Of course they did. Did that have anything to do with the punishment that called for their absolute extinction? Of course not. What the punishment came from was that they brought on Amalek 2.0,
wow,
which was much worse than the first version of Amalek.
right.
Attacked us in the desert. Much
It's always
than the
worse
first.
every time it comes back, right?
It's
That's all-
always worse. This was a very, very sophisticated, absolutely comprehensive destruction effort, right? Very
Right.
similar to the Nazi one. Very similar, right? It was systematic, organized. Everybody was on board. The Targum says that Haman and Ahashverosh called in scribes from each of the 127 city-states
Wow,
to write the proclamation in exactly the language and tone and lingo that would leave things crystal clear that they slaughter everybody, men,
Wow.
woman, and child. They take everything, and there's nothing standing in their way. Nothing.
Oof.
Okay, so this is Nazi Germany 2,000 years ago,
Right,
right?
Yeah.
Very, very organized. Okay, so in terms of the Matan Torah, we accepted Torah on an altogether different level in Purim than we did the first time around. But it also reminds us, and it's very important that Purim reminds us of what the Galut does to us. It does not good things to us. And the beracha is not always a beracha. The financial beracha.
What you think is a beracha, it's not really, it's not a beracha. It's not,
It may not be. To
right.
your point, Zeke,
Be
when you say,
distracted.
okay, when was the person going to give charity? Now this, that. What are you talking about?
It's the
What are you
morphine, it's the morphine, right.
You got to do it this second, this
Yeah.
minute. And the learning Torah is, we have to make something really clear to ourselves. Whatever we do, but we got to make something really clear to ourselves. And excuse the cliche, but we live and die with learning Torah. Period. That's the first 100 of 1 to 100. It's 1 to 100 learning Torah, and then it's everything else. It's not 1 to 10. And we need to know that. And, we need to know that. We've all been learning Torah our whole lives. I've been learning Torah my whole life. You guys have been learning Torah your whole lives, right? But what Purim is shouting is, how do you order in your day? Hayesh Hashem b'kidbecha im ayin. Is God inside you? Are you in it? Are you enamored by it? Or are you doing stuff? The doing stuff, compounded with the hastarat panim, with the distancing that God distances himself from us in the galut, allows nasty stuff to happen. Okay, so that's what's going on. But to go back to our model, right? We don't need Pesach because Pesach was about a different level of threat. This is a greater level of threat. So if I'm going to celebrate, if I'm going to commemorate, if I'm going to be reminded of what it takes to remove myself from being threatened, I'm better off celebrating Purim than Pesach. When it comes to Matan Torah, I'm better off celebrating Purim than Shavuot because the Torah that we took was a result of living through the galut, the expulsion, the alienation based on our success, and us stepping up and saying we want it back. And in fact, in Shavuot and the first Matan Torah, we were completely passive. With Purim, we're completely active, and Mordechai and Esther go to an extreme to make that clear because they don't even put God's name in the Megillah to highlight and shout the point that it all came from us. It all came from us with a little help from God. It all came from us, the salvation. Good?
Got it.
Okay.
The future Geulah, there's like conflicting opinions how much we're gonna bring it versus like it coming down. So you would say a similar model?
It's a very important point. The way I understand it is this. The way I understand it is it's ours to bring. It's ours to bring. That's the model. That's the plan. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. But if it reaches a certain point, a critical point in human development and Jewish nation development, and we haven't brought it, then he's going to bring it. The problem is if he brings it, it won't be gradual. It won't be developmental. It'll be harder. It'll just be harder for us. It'll be brought with a different type of experience than if we bring it. So ideally, we want to keep growing so we can bring it. We mentioned, okay, no, we're going to run out of time. Okay, Rosh Hashanah. Why should Purim replace Rosh Hashanah?
Why should Purim replace Rosh Hashanah?
Yep.
And it's amazing that we're talking. I mean, I understand this, but Esther petitioned to have the Megillah included in the Tanakh, right? That wasn't something that was going to happen without that effort.
It took time. Mordechai and Esther pushed for years until it was accepted. That's right.
Right,
Because
right,
people didn't, because to your point, people didn't understand, they didn't understand the Mahalach. They didn't understand the relationship in the diaspora, in the Galut. They didn't
Right.
understand that it's overwhelmingly the effort of man that will bring out changes in circumstances that would have otherwise been catastrophic, because they looked back to the book of Shemot and they said, no, the only way this stuff happens is when God, brings sounds that you can see, so to speak, right? And God comes down, right? That's the only
Right.
way it can happen. It's not true. It's not true, but they had to learn that, so it took some time. So why can Purim replace Rosh Hashanah?
This is behind the scenes Malchut, like Hamelech. We see it like God working and that's coronating, eventually realizing behind the Haftarah.
Beautiful, Teddy. Perfect. And who was the conduit for Malchut? Who brought Malchut?
Yeah, Esther and the lineage that came through them.
Besh, Esther, Malchut. So the rabbis struggle with that and say, what kind of terminology is that? She adorned Malchut. Say she adorned the dress of a Malkah before she went to the Mishter. But she adorned Malchut, which meant that she was the one that shakes the people and brings the people back. She was the one that shouts about where things are going, at the behest of Mordechai, of course. And our rabbis say that the fast of 3 days, day and night, which we know is on Pesach, right? So she canceled Pesach. She canceled the first 3 days of Pesach, first 2 days at least. She canceled the Seder. She canceled the eating matzot. She canceled the kosot of wine and matzah and the maror. She canceled the Haggadah, all of which are the oraitot. She cancels all of them, as we know,
right.
because of this catastrophic situation. And our rabbis say that she fasted day and night. And when she got to the party, she essentially had removed herself from anything physical. She was so berated and so hungry and so tired that she was effectively working on a non-physical level, which meant that she demonstrated the capacity of the Jewish person way after Gan Eden and Ma'amad Har Sinai to be able to extricate and free himself from the physical, from the galut, or from any physical, and reconnect to Borei Olam and force his hand to save us. So when we say it's Labesh Esther Malchut, we're talking about like when it says Shal Na'alecha Ma'al Raglecha with Moshe Rabbeinu, where she exited from the physical and was able to reach to God directly on behalf of the Jewish people, who, by the way, were shaken very hard to recognize that God was not within them. They were mechanical in doing their mitzvot, Rambam cries and shouts about this and says, stop being mechanical. If a person is mechanical and relatively mindless in doing his mitzvot, that's the lack of Hashem being inside of us.
Right.
So the rub is that a person could be keeping the mitzvot, and God forbid a catastrophe like this, no aleno, could still come on.
Well, you're saying keeping, you mean doing. You mean the act,
Doing.
the acts, right?
Right,
Of
exactly.
right.
Doing. So it's all about the relationship. It's all about the closeness. It's all about the taking responsibility. They finally took responsibility, right? And they said, we're going to beat this decree, right? And the people who modeled it were Mordechai and Esther. But that was a change in paradigm, because nobody was willing to sacrifice himself up until then. Even Esther was ambivalent about it, because they fell into the trap of the Galut, which everybody.
But nobody knew except Mordechai that she was in this spot, in this position, right? It was no Mossad operation that she had backup or anything. She just went in there on a solo mission, which is
Beautiful. But you know what Mordechai says, right? What does Mordechai tell her?
I
What
don't
does
know.
Mordechai tell her?
I don't know. I know that.
Tachshech. He tells her, don't worry about yourself, because if you don't do it,
Nevach,
yeah, what did he say?
Nobody will, I guess, right? We're dead.
that'll
We're all
come from somewhere else. Makom acher, something like that.
Beautiful. So tell me about that, Teddy. What does that mean? What does that mean?
I mean, it could come through you. Someone's gonna do it, but you gotta step up. Otherwise, I guess God will bring it through another means. So don't
No.
miss the opportunity.
If she doesn't do it, then how's it going to happen?
no, in a painful way, right?
No, somebody else is going to step up.
Or
In other
someone-
words,
Oh,
Right.
okay.
the mahalach of the galut is there's this alienation, there's separation. We become robotic. We become non-committed in our yahadut. We become more convenience-oriented rather than being consumed by it and in it, fully immersed in it, and then doing other stuff. There will be that will be compounded by Hakadosh Baruch Hu's quietude and low-key playing, but invariably, Hakadosh Baruch Hu will not allow us to be destroyed, and somebody will step up. Somebody will step up and shout from the rooftops.
So why is that a threat to Esther? Why is that a threat? Why would that prompt her to want to do it? That should be the easy out to BO, right? Somebody else will do it.
Yeah. Any
Why does she
ideas
care?
on why she want to do it?
Yeah. Why would that make her want to do it herself versus take BO and say, let somebody else do it? I can't do this.
The mashmaut is that she didn't want to do it. That
She didn't want to do it, right? So she could have taken a pass, meaning, but why did she end up doing it based on that statement?
Well, there's different opinions, but let's first talk about why she didn't want to do it.
Okay.
One of the reasons that's brought that she didn't want to do it, that she didn't feel worthy. Another is that
She had to be with the king. It's disgusting. The whole thing was a disaster, right? It's not easy.
Right. She had a marital relationship with Mordechai.
Yeah.
And all the time that she was taken by Achashverosh, she was anusa. She was taken against her will.
Right. Right.
But
Not fun. It's not a fun thing to be with it's not easy.
Okay, but the point being
that way.
that she could still go back to her husband.
We get that, but I'm saying, but even mentally, it's not an easy thing to endure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. I'm just talking about this opinion for a minute.
Yeah.
This opinion says that once she goes to the Mishteh and she presents her proposal to Ahasuerus, she's indicating to him that she's willing to be with him voluntarily.
Right.
That destroys her opportunity to be back with Mordechai.
Right.
So she says, I could be killed, right? Worst case, I could be killed and fail. I could be accepted, right? Which case Jewish people will be saved, but my life is ruined. Because my life with Mordechai is ruined.
Right.
So she says, can't you do it with somebody else?
All right.
And Mordechai tells her, no, you can't do it with somebody else. You were put in this position and it has to come through you. Okay, there's a lot to talk about on that, but let's just sum up, put the pieces together. We don't need Rosh Hashanah anymore, because Yom Hadin, the idea of the Jewish people being called to Din, because ultimately it doesn't go on forever, is absolutely shouted in the message of Purim. We don't need Kippur anymore. Why not?
I guess the same thing, right? Because we have the same concept with Purim. With Purim is actually a part of Kippur. It's the same concept, right?
Beautiful. Why? because what was shown in Purim is that when the people make teshuvah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts it. So if you're going to talk about teshuvah, changing a person's destiny, changing life individually, collectively, there's no better way to say it than in Purim. And in fact,
The kapara is in Purim as well, right?
right, beautiful. The kapara is in Purim. People say that Kippur is Kippurim.
Right.
Really, Purim is the day, and Kippur is the knockoff. And the Sukkot, how would you parallel Purim to Sukkot and hold that Purim captures what Sukkot stands for as well? Why do we
The instability, the lack, the uncertainty, that we think that our homes or the temporary, I don't know. I can't really put it together. What do we
keep
got?
going? You're right there.
I don't know.
Yeah, the temporary. So when we step outside, right, of the permanent, when we allow ourselves that type of temporality and so on, we can have confidence that good things are going to happen. And we
Getting out of our comfort zone, that's what Purim does for us as well, though.
Sukkot is about going under the wings of God rather than the wings of what we typically assume will protect us and safeguard us. That's really the underpinning of Sukkot, sitting in Sukkah rather than permanent dwelling. And really, Purim says the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's enter in the Kanfei Shekhinah, under the wings of God, and that's going to be what protects us.
Yeah.
So, to pull it all together, two quick minutes. Every holiday gives us the opportunity to grow. Every holiday should be happy. God wants us to be happy. God really says that the way for us to be happiest is to be closest to Him.
Right. God commands us to be happy. That's not even a choice. Really.
That's even better. Even better. So when we're pulling all of the core points of what it means to build a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu together in the holiday of Purim, we're doing it with a lot of fun and happiness, with a lot of interpersonal, because that's critically important. You really can't love God if you don't know how to love people. Very hard to love God if you can't love people. People say it the opposite way, but it's not true. So if you want to rebuild a relationship with God, you have to be beloved by people and you have to love them. And loving people is a very hard job, very, very hard job, because life presents all kinds of legitimate reasons why we don't want to be there. We don't want to love. We want to separate. Life gives tons of reasons. But without one, you can't have the other. And despite sometimes the pain and the disappointment and the huge pain and the huge disappointment, we got to go back in and love people again. And the Mishloach Manot is meant to be that. And it's meant to demand of us that we reach beyond ourselves and reach out to people who should be loved. And by doing that, we're vulnerable, we may be hurt. Many times we will be, but that's okay. We know what we're doing. And funny, yeah. So stuff on Purim stuff.
Nice.
Love it.
Thoughts, questions? You good?
I loved it. I like that. I like that concept. It's true.
I never heard of the connection to Sukkot before, but it's nice.
Yeah, isn't it nice when you really think about it? Purim does it all, and it
Not at
does.
all.
And it
That's
does
it. I'm done. I'm forgetting about 2 days of the holiday. I'm done. I'm only Purim from now on.
Not yet. Not
That's
yet.
it.
Cowboy. Not yet. Great.
Great.
right. Great to
All
see
right.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Learn
Thank you,
tomorrow
thank
at
you.
11 in B'nai,
11.
whoever make it, 11 a.m. And God willing, Monday, Sunday, we're on for 9:15, God willing.
Excellent.
Okay, great.
Right.
All right.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat shalom,
everybody.
everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay.